What's the biggest scandal that's ever happened at your school? A student got sassy with a teacher about a grade, and the teacher kicked him out of the room. The student grabbed a pencil and stabbed the assistant teacher in the room, just in the hand, but still. So the teacher goes rage mode and physically marches the student down to the dean's office. Everyone is initially furious at the student. He'll be expelled for sure. Assistant teacher is shaken, but fine. Daddy was a big donor to the school, and the kid was on the state championship-bound basketball team. Daddy argued with the school, who reverses the expulsion and instead fires the teacher for, quote, laying hands on a student. There were walkouts. Several other teachers quit. The local news picked it up. The whole 9 yards. Nothing changed. The school kept the little a-hole to keep Daddy happy and fired a very, very good teacher. Yeah, can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing. Walk out of the school, that is. That's so corrupt and just wrong. You can't stand and support something like that. Terrible. Next story. Someone was writing messages in human crap all over the walls of the men's bathrooms. They were dubbed the fecal terrorist. It went on for a surprisingly long time before the culprits were caught. Turns out the reason it took so long was because it was actually two guys, and they would alternate committing acts of fecal terrorism while the other one had a solid alibi. Next story. This kid had a fake toy grenade and threw it in a classroom. The teacher dove on top of it and began to yell out to the students to go now. That kid got into so much trouble and had to transfer to a school out of state since nobody wanted him. I have no idea what happened to him, but I know that he was hit with absolute crazy charges. Rumors began to spread that he was being sent to prison for insane amounts of years. Edit. Wow, didn't think this would get attention. It happened in 2014. Turns out the kid who threw the fake grenade didn't act alone. Him and two other students were involved. When I first heard about it, I didn't think they would get into any legal trouble, but they did. I guess there's a law in my state that says a person who possesses or uses a hoax device or replica with the intent to cause another to believe that the hoax device or replica is a destructive device or detonator commits a Class D felony. A person convicted of a Class D felony could face 6 months to 3 years in prison and up to a $10,000 fine. I have plenty of other scandals that happened at my high school, with people calling in bomb threats to bringing in guns / threatening to kill students. Next story. In college, a girl from my dorm was the daughter of a mafia guy. One night at the bar, a guy gets into an argument with her boyfriend, takes a swing at him, and hits her by accident. 2 days later, her father came to campus with the two biggest human beings I've ever seen in person. They went over to the kid's dorm, pushed their way into the building, and were trying to kick in the door of his room when campus security and the police arrived and got them out. The kid left school that night and never came back. Next story. A kid was arrested 2 weeks before he planned to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Columbine shooting by recreating it at my high school. At first, I thought it was just some dumbass trying to act cool and edgy, but it soon came out that he had guns, bombs, a hit list, the works. It was pretty surprising because while the kid definitely looked the part, trench coat, fingerless gloves, etc., he actually acted fairly normal. He seemed to have friends, got decent grades, was polite and friendly when you spoke to him, and I never was aware of him being bullied or anything. I guess there must have been stuff going on outside school. The whole thing made national news. Next story. Not a scandal, but had a sad story that everyone knew about. A mother of a 5th grader, 11 years old, had a massive depression and decided that she couldn't go on with her life. Apparently, her husband tried everything to help her, but in the end, she self-unalived and she also took her son with her. Our principal told us that she left a letter where she stated that she doesn't want her son to live a life without her, so she wouldn't have a choice. He sent the whole school home for the rest of the week. Next story. Scam artist pretended to have a PhD and talked his way to a job as head of the department. Did nothing for a year, told the school he had cancer, got a big loan and ran. Terrorists tried ramming a car through the gate and tried to burn down the attached church, but couldn't get the car up the steps. Newspaper reported that the car lost control and crashed. Custodian who saw them do it at 5 a.m. gave us the real story. Next story. Teaching assistant ran an after-school sports club for a while. The guy was well-liked, so his club was popular. Then someone discovered his gym bag pointed towards the changing room showers with a camera sticking out. His house got raided and the police found a whole library of videos of students from his sports club in the shower. It made the news and he went to prison. He went from being one of the most popular members of staff to the most hated overnight. Next story. The Paramus Catholic sex scandal. Once a year, my school would allow students to travel to France, Germany, or Italy with chaperones from the school. Two of the chaperones, one a coach and a subteacher, the other the VP of operations for the school, and two girls from my 11th grade class, 17-year-olds, got drunk as a group and paired off and slept together in Germany. Word spread like wildfire upon their return, and the teachers were immediately fired. They were trialed, but the outcome wasn't as harsh as it normally is because the incident happened on foreign soil. The VP had a pregnant wife at home at the time, too. One girl left the school a month later because she was getting made fun of left and right, and the other just clammed up and hardly spoke again. There were reporters outside of the school for weeks. Next story. Spanish teacher was pregnant but lost the baby in childbirth. When she came back after the birth, she had taken a job at another school closer to her husband and other son and left. After she left, I found out she had been screwing some of the boys in the class and sending nude Snapchats, and she actually screwed some in her classroom after graduation. Everyone knew, even the principals, but they couldn't do anything because no one wanted to be the guy that had screwed her, but I know a lot of people had seen the Snapchats. She's since been removed from her other teaching job for mental health reasons, and her husband has left her. Some people speculate if the baby was even his. Next story. In college, we had a reported active bomber/shooter situation. Someone called the police and told them he had students held hostage in a library study room and had a bomb in another location. After hours of standoff, SWAT arriving, news crews, people being located and ID'd, they identified the student. Turns out he was in an entirely different building working on a huge project with my roommate and two other students from about 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. They were working with highly sensitive equipment, so none of them had their phones on them. The kid left the project to use the restroom around 5:30 and called the cops, then came back and worked on the project for 5 more hours without dropping a hint to his teammates. Next story. I studied at a small high school. We only had like 6 classrooms, one next to each other. The bathroom was in front of the classroom on the corner. One day, we start feeling this weird smell. I had no idea what it was. Thought it was like melted plastic or something. Then we start seeing smoke. Turns out 2 people were smoking weed on the bathroom with terrible ventilation and got the whole hallway full of smoke. They got expelled. Next story. A student was pregnant, hid the pregnancy from her parents, had the baby at home while her parents were at work, and the baby died. Then a lengthy court case followed because they were never able to determine if she killed the baby or the baby died of natural causes. They were a pretty prominent family in the area, too. It was quite a spectacle. It came out that she had had several abortions prior, and her uncle got in trouble for threatening the judge. Oh, and did I mention we were a Catholic school? She went to prison. Not sure what happened to her after that. Next story. History teacher getting divorced, marrying some random fella from far away, getting high at school, and sending nudes to him during the breaks. As we were kind of nosy teenagers, we went to her computer while she was away and found them. It wasn't that nice. Also, gay geography teacher having tapes with gay adult content in class and accidentally putting one on instead of one with the sea lions in Chile, which he has made. Next story. We had a several-hour lockdown with the SWAT team in tow because one male student threatened to shoot up the school. We didn't get to leave to go home until about 8 p.m., and students were peeing in the sinks of the science and art classrooms because of how long they had to wait without being allowed to use the washrooms. Happened after I graduated, but one guy I had math class with, who was a total dumbass, was busted for leading a human trafficking ring that spanned across 3 cities. Yeah, so being holed up this long may seem excessive, but I mean, when it comes to the safety of students, children, really the safety of people in general, you can never be too cautious. So this one, as inconvenient as it might be to take a leak in the sink, I totally understand it. Next story. This was a long time ago, but we had a science technology teacher who was like the boys' cross-country coach. Well, he took like 6 boys, this was middle school, invited them to his house for like a team party, and there were no parents there, just the teacher and 6 kids. He puts on gay adult content and taught them all how to self-pleasure. Kids apparently did it, let him watch, then told their parents, and he was in prison for a long time. Next story. My high school history teacher was accused of sexual misconduct. He was probably the best teacher a failing high school student could have because it wasn't the facts you retained, but the effort you put in, and man, would he get passionate and excited when the class was engaged. Unfortunately, he was also very keen to the damage just the accusation would cause and ended up blowing his head off in his garage. The girl admitted it didn't happen and she was just upset with the grades she was getting. It's a tragedy that still saddens me not only because we lost a great teacher, but also how it weakened other female students' ability to come forward as true victims. I'm so glad I never knew the girl. Next story. One of the teachers at my secondary school had apparently offered higher grades to students if they sent him nudes. As far as I know, nobody ever sent them, and the police quickly got involved. He ended up getting fired, obviously, and I think he spent a few months in prison. In any case, he's out now. He moved away and doesn't work in education anymore. Next story. Not my school, but one in the district. A kid I knew recently turned 18. It soon came out that he and a substitute were banging. The school couldn't do anything because substitutes don't have the same contract as a tenured teacher, and the student was 18, so it was consensual. The substitute had a family, husband, and kids. He was a member of one of the most stuck-up/rich kid families in town. It ruined the reputation of that sub, and the reputation of his parents, who are doctors who own their own clinic. I think last I heard, she left her family for him, though more likely the family left her, and the student got kicked out and basically disowned. Next story. One student was sleeping with the teacher, and her nudes got out, and someone posted them on Twitter, tagging the school. Then another teacher was caught the same week, after a bunch of students started accusing random teachers that amounted to nothing, just students being a-holes. A student wore a dress to school and was sent home by the principal. The students called the news just so they could be interviewed about it, though the student shouldn't have been sent home in the first place. During homecoming week, it was Decades Day, and a student dressed as a slave with chains and blood. He was sent home. Kids called the news a second time that year, and they came out. Currently, a teacher was arrested for unaliving kittens. Funny enough, the teacher he replaced was one of the teachers who was fired for a student-teacher relationship. I graduated a few years ago, but every now and then my old high school is on the news for something new, and it rarely surprises me. Next story. My English teacher, Mrs. M, was married to a teacher at a nearby school, Mr. M. They lived around the block from my family, and it's a small town, so we knew them pretty well. Well, shortly after I graduated, it came to light that Mr. M had been messing around with multiple students at his school. During the investigation, he was even caught on camera going into the school in the middle of the night to leave notes in the girls' lockers. They reportedly said things like, everything's gonna be okay, and that he loves them, etc. The worst part is that Mrs. M had been pregnant during my junior and senior year, and she really struggled. She was open about it in class, like, ladies, pregnancy is very serious. I'm sure I'm not the only student that got the impression that she didn't really even want kids. So anyway, that's probably when his flings probably started, or at least picked up enough that he got caught. The whole thing was of course very public and the talk of the town. As far as I know, she left him. It just seemed like a terrible couple of years for her. I hope she's doing well now. Yeah, I'd like to second that. I also hope she's doing well too. I don't understand this. Like all these stories, and I know there's going to be more in this round that we're reading today, like of students and teachers hooking up. Like what is wrong with people? This is just so sick and disturbing. Next story. Everyone joked the drama teacher was a predator. Even before I got to the school, I heard it. I had the guy for drama for a few years, and he didn't give a single F. Would show up late and swear and sometimes not turn up. Then, only after I left, he got arrested for being a predator. Nothing happened to me or anyone I knew, just a relationship with one student. Next story. I went to a boarding school for a year. We all slept in dorms. One dorm had a guy that would pleasure himself in the shower every so often in the middle of the night. We called him the Midnight Beater. We knew when he struck because he left evidence, despite the fact that multiple people in the dorm would sometimes stay up attempting to catch him and figure out who it was. The guy was never caught. Always seemed to know the nights when the coast was clear and when it wasn't. To this day, the Midnight Beater remains at large. Next story. I went to a school that was good for the 2 years I was there, but then the principal got replaced and the school went to crap. My mom pulled me out in 5th grade and homeschooled me for a year because I got waitlisted for another school. She honestly thought about sending me back to the school, but just decided not to. Probably a good decision. Wasn't a good school anymore. The next year, the school sent out an email. My cousin still went to the school at the time, and we saw it, and it was basically an apology because they hired a new science teacher who was a gay predator who got pulled outside by cops in the middle of a class in front of a bunch of 6th graders. A little scary, but also I would probably find it funny to watch my teacher get arrested until I found out what he got arrested for. Next story. Had a cool English teacher, allegedly an American, who just did not show up one day or the next. He was an external teacher for multiple schools. After asking around a bit, we found out he was not an American, but originally German, which spent most of his life in the USA, slowly building his way to be the top dog of one biker gang, which ran pretty much everything from dope to prostitution, weapons trafficking, murders, anything. He actually did not show up because the cops came to arrest him to another school, as he was wanted in Austria for kidnapping and attempted murder. Next story. At my old middle school, we had hallways that always had fire alarms and open access. For about a week every day, the fire alarm was pulled and it annoyed everybody. The school then realized the problem wouldn't stop unless they did something. For about a month, none of us could use the halls because they were making the fire alarms only accessible to staff. We had to run around campus to make it to our classes on time. They never found the people who kept pulling the fire alarms. Good thing it stopped for the rest of the year. Next story. When I was in high school, my senior year, basically my grade was the only grade on a field trip at the time. We went to a small Canadian town where we got to see some good plays. On our way back from the trip, we had Wi-Fi on the bus, people started seeing some disturbing posts on their feed. Students from other grades in our school were saying they were on lockdown and that they heard gunshots. Some were way more dramatic, saying people had been shot and that teachers had died. Many yelled in the dark. It was also all over the news that our school was under lockdown because of a possible intruder. The teachers that were with us on the trip brought us to this big Apple store where all they made were products using apples to distract everyone. Example, apple pie. Basically, the teachers had no idea what was going on and were stalling. They didn't want to bring us back to school until it was safe. Finally, we get back to school and our principal boards the bus to explain what happened. Turns out there was no intruder whatsoever. Some teacher accidentally pressed a button activating the intruder code alarm. The cops had evacuated the whole building, one class at a time. To this day, I'm still pretty pissed people were posting such content on social media. I'd be terrified in that situation trying to hide. I'm also very thankful I was not in school that day, but on a field trip, especially since my parents didn't even know it had happened until 4 hours later. I texted them, but they were working, so blah. Everyone was there, but our grade. Many people got phone calls from family members that thought we were at school. Next story. A guy broke up with his girlfriend before spring break. He went abroad immediately for spring break, and she went missing. When contacted by police to provide possible leads, he made a Facebook post about it, adding he would only talk for full immunity. So yeah, that kind of raised a F-load of suspicions. And if I recall correctly, the authorities were looking at extradition. Turns out he was just effing her new boyfriend the entire weekend, and he legit knew nothing but wanted to cover his. Next story. All of these are from an old elementary school I attended. School lockdown for a fight outside. Rumor spread around of it being an armed person nearby. 2 fires in the cafeteria. A flash flood every year where our school would get a pond in a grassy area that made a small hole of more grass. The rain would fill it up enough to make a pond. Ducks were in it. School had an essayer that I was with for 1 year and was near for several more. He had 4 counts of essay. School had a tornado as well. Students at the school had one large war where the school couldn't care less to stop. A lot of people got injured during it. Next story. Our IT guy was accused of being a predator after taking someone home. Turns out that administration does not like him because everyone goes to him instead of the 5 VPs in principle, so they made that accusation against him, and the girl came forward and told everyone that it wasn't true, and that he was their parents' best friend giving her a ride home. Needless to say, he was transferred to another school, and all administrators were never punished. And to this day, they pull this crap on students they don't like or are a liability to the school's budget. Also, 2 kids were caught dealing drugs at the school, and both got arrested. This made the news. Next story. Senior year of high school, my best friend used a toy flamingo as a gun and went around pretending to shoot people with it. He went up to one of our teachers who took it as a death threat. He was arrested, expelled, and after some politics was allowed to come back to school. Turns out, someone was going to her house, the teachers, at night, pounding on the walls of her house and leaving dead animals on her doorstep. Not my friend. Then she left our school, changed her name, and started teaching at another school in our district. Next story. My 6th grade science teacher didn't show up for the second semester. We had to have a sub for the remainder of the school year. It wasn't until my graduation day of middle school that I found out he had essayed the AP and got her pregnant. That answers a lot because both the AP and the teacher left at the same time. Next story. On the morning announcements on a Monday, the principal said all of Mr. S's classes go to the following rooms for the day. When my class period rolls around, we go to the new classroom, and principal comes in and says that sub will be teaching your English class for the rest of the semester, 1 week. At the end, we will take a comprehensive test over everything sub teaches us. There will be a permanent replacement next semester. Mr. S's classroom had its lock changed and was not opened again, that we saw until after Christmas. The principal did not want to fire him. It wasn't anything sexual like a lot of these, but the diocese, private school, told her to fire him or they would fire her and hire somebody who would. They still have not said what happened officially, which makes the rumors worse. Edit in 2021. It was sexual and he is possibly gay. Sexual imposition of minors, plural, for 20 plus years, mostly male students that were at his house. Principal was fired for covering up 20 plus years of SA. Next story. Okay, this isn't that big, but one April Fool's Day, someone replaced the Oreo filling with mint toothpaste and gave it to people. Some kids got sick and had to be sent home. None of the teachers knew what to do, so they canceled school on April Fool's Day for the next few years. 2 of my classmates ate them. They didn't get sick, luckily. Next story. We had several. Girl attempted to unalive herself in the bathroom, was found by a student who had to have counseling. She lived, and most people believe it was for attention. Guy brought a gun to school, and it was confiscated before he could use it. We went on lockdown at that point. Track coach was encouraging students to assault another student because he accidentally got in the way of one of the school's runners during an event. Was promptly fired when my mom came in to rage about it. The student was me. Next story. I read the comments and my story seems like child's play. So basically, the girls and boys in my school were separated. This girl in 5th grade, 10 years old, once made a circular for Halloween, complete with the school watermark, principal signature, etc., etc. This circular was for 11th and 12th grade boys. The circular said that the boys could dress up in costumes for Halloween. They did. Staff confused as heck. Other students jealous. That jealousy only lasted until the boys were sent home to change and said girl was suspended. Next story. Was harassed by an old friend. I told the office didn't do crap. He went on to harass other girl. Office didn't do crap. I was told he also essayed a girl who also told the office didn't do crap, and was too scared to tell the police about it. Still walks the halls and has a good reputation, but our mutual dropped him after they found out what he did to me. Glad some people took my side. There was also a stabbing, but it was a bit anticlimactic. Someone managed to sneak a butter knife in and pulled it out in a fight. Only 2 kids got hurt, but they were fine. It was scary when no one knew what was going on, but afterwards it was kind of like a regular fight, just a little more bloody. More safety precautions were added to the school, like ID scanner and a better metal detector and or security, which is nice. Next story. In middle school, a sexting scandal that made the news outside of our immediate local area, and for a while it looked like it was going to be a landmark case for charging minors of distribution of CP, but ultimately the chief prosecutor chose not to charge them. In high school, the year before I got there was a series of cafeteria fights where people were throwing chairs and rumors spread online that people were going to bring weapons. One kid stabbed another with an X-Acto knife in the in-school suspension room. He was allowed to have an X-Acto knife at work on a drafting and design project. The kids involved were in school because of a previous fight, so it was an isolated conflict. But the news blew it up and made it sound like a gang fight because we already had a reputation for being the hood school. 2 of my friends had grievances with how a teacher was grading, so they sent her an anonymous email just airing those grievances. But then one of them used the same anonymous email address to implicate the other for making death threats to a kid who was getting too close to me. So I ended up getting interrogated by the school administrators because they thought I had a gang-affiliated boyfriend. My other classmates didn't know exactly what was going on, and the rumors were that someone was sending death threats to teachers. The year I graduated, the principal also left, and months later, he was busted for possession of marijuana. The memes on my class alumni Facebook page were fantastic. Everything involving one of the history teachers. He was going through a divorce the year I had him. It definitely affected his work, and several major developments happened during my class specifically. He called his cell carrier while we were taking a test to get get GPS tracking on his wife's phone. He gave us a lecture once about not getting names tattooed on your body because he had to figure out a way to cover up his wife's name. Unrelated, but he once sucked a spider off a wall and ate it live, like an anteater. Then, a couple years after I graduated, he suddenly wasn't teaching anymore in the middle of the year. Rumor has it, it was because of an altercation with a student. Last I heard, he married the drama teacher. Next story. My high school was built in the 1800s, in a town that was founded in the 1700s. While the high school had been remodeled a little on the interior over the decades, certain areas were blocked off, including the basement and third story. The basement was terrifying. It was an underground gym, including a pool, catwalk track, and basketball court. But the boiler room was also there, and it looked like where Freddy Krueger was doing cardio. The rumor was that asbestos was found, and the town didn't have enough money to correct it. So they just closed off certain areas. That rumor went around for years. Turns out it was true. They built a new high school and closed off the old one due to asbestos. There were also a bunch of police raids due to various trouble kids. This was pre-Columbine. One kid brought in a grenade. The same kid made a homemade pipe bomb and stuffed it in the paper towel dispenser in the lavatory. There were a few instances where the kids brought guns to school, but it was handled totally different then. Hell, I got caught with a pocket knife, and my teacher said, "Put it in your backpack. I don't want to see it again." Yeah, true story. Times have changed. In some ways, in this case, for sure, for the better. I mean, you could just casually bring whatever you wanted in your bag. There's no security. Gates are just wide open. You could leave school at any time, go somewhere, come back with whatever. Just wild to think that that wasn't even considered an issue back then. But yeah. Next story. A couple of weeks ago, some of the sixth formers at our school organized a protest regarding a kid who had been upskirting some of the girls in his class. This was something that had already been reported to the school and had gone to the police, with no action being taken on it. And I do get that it's innocent until proven guilty or whatever, but as far as I know, they did not go to any of the victims asking for testimony, and the police investigation lasted only half a day. To protest this, about half the school, and we have over 1,000 students, all sat in the quad during period 1 and some of period 2. The teachers said that they would be trying to work with the victims, but given their track record, I'm not all too sure. Our school has quite a reputation, as it's a grammar school, so I imagine it isn't amazing to hear parents of year 6s saying, "Now I know not to send my kids to this school," LMAO. On a lighter note, in my prep school, which was very conservative and probably homophobic, I can't even remember, the head of music ran away with the school secretary, and honestly, that's the definition of lesbian rights, and I love them for it. Next story. We had a Halloween costume contest every year, until one year this guy won with his orange prison jumpsuit costume. Afterward, teachers realized the name tag on the jumpsuit was that of a recent school shooter. He got suspended and started posting hit lists and death threats on students' MySpace walls. Posted pictures of himself with a rifle. Principal was very adamant about students still coming to school, which got a lot of worried parents pissed off. Dude never made good on his threats, and eventually things returned to normal. We never got another costume contest again, though. Next story. Well, I made a scandal at my school when I was in 4th grade. I studied in a private, Christian school in the Philippines up to my 4th grade. Though it's located in a small town, so it did not make much fuss, I guess. I was bullied and picked up a lot, to the point that I desperately wanted to get transferred to a public school and be with my friends who study there. There was this one day where we're free from schoolwork the entire time, since school is almost over and we only go to complete our attendance. Our advisor told us we're free to play and do anything, but we can only stay inside our classroom. I was so broken. I'm left alone while everyone's playing and having fun in groups. I suddenly got really pissed that I picked up a pair of scissors a classmate was using and told everyone to shut up or I'll stab everyone. Then, my next memory of it, everyone was being escorted out. I was bawling out with the scissors I held was pointed towards me. They said I was threatening to unalive myself. I got transferred to a nearby public school during 5th grade and had a pretty normal life. Never went to therapy, since my now estranged family don't really believe in it, and have been wanting to get one for years now. I'm saving up for it. Next story. I've got a few to share. 1. The gun incident. In 7th grade, a kid brought a gun to my school. This one needs some background, so here it is. Keep in mind that the people involved are a bit on the rough side. So this one kid was bullying another kid. I'll just refer to them as bully and victim. The bullying went on for a bit, then they started having fights and stuff. Now, this is where the story gets kind of blurry. From what I've heard from friends, they had a locker by the kid that brought the gun, and they had to go down to the office to prove that they weren't involved in the incident. For some context, our principal thinks that if you were near a place where something took place, then you were involved in it. I've had this happen many times to me and had to explain that I wasn't part of some really crazy stuff. So what happened was the kid who was being bullied decided to take a gun to intimidate the bully. From what I've heard, the gun was an unloaded 9mm. He thought that he would scare the kid into leaving him alone. He got caught because the principal happened to be watching the cameras that morning when the kid was stupid enough to take the gun out of his bag and put it on the top shelf of his locker. He got called down to the office and never came back to school. I think the principal felt kind of guilty about dragging my friend into all of this, so he told him what ended up happening. The kid who brought the gun went to juvenile detention center and still isn't back. I'm in 9th grade writing this, and the bully was suspended for a week. 2. So the same kid who was the bully in the first story got in trouble again in 8th grade. He got in trouble for essaying a girl, also 8th grade, in the hallway. I don't know who it was that he did it to, but I do know what happened. So the kid was walking down the hallway between classes, saw the girl, and decided to do it. He got caught because another kid was walking to the bathroom, saw what was happening, and ran to the office. I don't know how this one ended, but I do know the kid who grabbed the girl never came back to my school again. And 3, one of the English teachers cheated on her husband with a janitor. Next story. Not my school, but an 11th grader murdered a 2nd grade kid in the toilet to get out of a test. It shook our town. Also not my school, but a young overweight boy died of a heart attack while running around on the field as a punishment. This was during the 90s. A lot of terrible hazing stories came out of the all-boys schools in my city, including forcing hazees to self-pleasure into bottles and gagging their mouths with dildos. Next story. I'll change names even though it doesn't really matter now. So, at my freshman orientation, there was a history teacher that everyone loved instantly. He was funny and real about what high school would be like, and he knew that we didn't want to be there. The dude was also young and had a mohawk, tattoos, and earrings, so he was, easy on the eyes for a lot of us. A week or so into the year, there was a lot of chatter going on, especially in my second period choir class. Yes, I'm a professed choir nerd. Anyway, things were tense with the seniors in that class. One day, after some serious chatter and my teacher yelling at the seniors to stop gossiping, one of them yelled out, "By now we're all aware that Sarah, 18-year-old female student, slept with Mr. Smith, male, 29. And that's why he's not teaching this year. I don't know why we can't talk about it. Most of our jaws dropped since we didn't know." Our cool orientation teacher was fired after having slept with a student. Mind you, Sarah was sitting in the same row as the person who blurted the news to us. At first, we all felt bad about it, but then Sarah started high-fiving people. Next story. A group of friends of mine set up a fight club in our middle school bathrooms in which most of them were dumb enough to record themselves doing it, in which someone made an Instagram account recording any of the brawls happening. So the teachers actually got smart. Compiling videos of anyone involved in the fights were to be suspended. So about half of the 8th grade boys in my school got suspended and bathrooms were monitored daily towards the end of the year. And one person moved out of the school since the dude's parents were afraid he was going to get jumped for snitching, in which everyone figured out there was an Instagram account that someone made. Next story. A kid in our school paid guys for nudes that girls sent them, then posted them all on a webpage he made. The school found out about it, called the parents of the girls who had photos on the webpage, called the girls into the office once their parents were already in the room, and turned the screen around like a gotcha moment, but effing horrible. All they did to the guy who made the webpage was give him a suspension. I still think about all the girls coming out of the office sobbing and mortified. Super effed up. Next story. High school. Senior on my wrestling team got in a fight with a druggie. There was drama between athletes and stoners for a week. Decided on Friday there would be a huge brawl at the park in town. Lots of places to go and get away with the big group of people fighting. The varsity members of the wrestling team all showed up, but no stoners came. The following Monday, nobody was talking about it at all, but our wrestling coach found out, and we spent 2 weeks in absolute hell. Next story. First, in freshman year, someone kept calling in bomb threats. This was pre-Columbine, so it felt very scary the first few times. It ended up being a classmate who didn't want to take exams. Second, a coordinated drug bust in which a bunch of kids were arrested in their classes at the same time across campus. It was insanely unfair, and from first-hand experience, the undercover agents were extremely coercive. Teachers being pressured and harassed to supply drugs. It was all such a waste of money. If I had been an adult at the time, I would have been pissed about my tax money going into that fraud. The kids who got caught up in it should have all been let off with community service, but most were completely derailed. Next story. This one isn't me, but my friend. Well, I'm involved, but I'll explain from the beginning. 2 words. Black market. Yeah, my friend runs an old school black market. You can buy anything, from school supplies to candy, and I helped him think of products, prices, and to this day, he's thinking of doing it again with a much larger scale next year. I'm not going into detail, because this is the kind of thing that you get in trouble for if caught. It all started when he told me about 2 months into this school year that this one dude just kept asking, day after day, to borrow a pencil. I then jokingly replied, well, if he needs it so bad and you don't, why not sell it? And he replied, sure, why not? I waited for about 10 minutes. He said, wow, I sold it for 20 cents. So this reminded me of a school event in 3rd grade. It was the swap shop for 3rd grade and above. You could sell an item of your choice, but it must be homemade, and only up to 3 unique items. I sold some flowers we had a ton of. You would receive, insert principal here, bucks and would use it as money. You were eligible to receive these any year, and they accumulated so you could choose to buy or sell. You could buy stuff any year, but I saved until the year just before. I ended up getting nothing. I replied, why not buy some more, sell those, and get money? It felt like I triggered his trap card. He said, I'm just going to run a full-on black market. Now, not to brag, but I understand. Being one with them, how a child's brain works, what they want, and what they're willing to do to get it. I offered to help him, so long as 5% of whatever he sells goes to me for any product I suggested. Modest prices, and I'm only offering for what I do the work for. He raises to 10, saying it wouldn't be fair. I decline and say he'll decide when the time comes. I would also like to mention he goes to hybrid classes due to COVID, and he only does this at lunch with anyone who walks by. I tell him to add pencil sharpeners to the deal, and he does. I ask what his are worth. He says about 50 cents per. I decide that making it a package would make the total $1 and the sharpener alone is 75. The pencil should be 25, so you can pay with a quarter or a few of them. I then say that he should also work as a pawn shop, selling anything he buys from others. Pen without ink for 30 cents, sell it for 50. About a 40% increase, but it doesn't matter so long as he profits. Then he said he was thinking about getting a cotton candy machine. I tried to calculate a good price minimum for him. Turns out that if he sells each one at about $1, he'll break even in just a week. If they sell out every week, then there will be more over the summer. But I'm only writing this. I might come back to write the final 17 paragraphs by the look of it. Next story. OMG, I have 3 big ones. In high school, our principal's name was Mr. Gonzalez, but people called him Gonzo. Anyway, someone spray painted "Gonzo eats hella ass" all over the middle courtyard of the school where we eat lunch. Funniest crap I've ever seen, and I think you can find it on Google somehow. In 7th grade middle school, yes, middle school, 2 people had sex on the tennis courts that was surrounded by walls. Turns out there was a camera watching the whole thing. This one is kind of sad, but after the Parkland shooting, Stoneman Douglas High School, which was about 30 minutes from my high school, a kid in my school brought a gun and threatened to shoot it up. Luckily, he was swatted in by police and taken into custody before he could do anything. Next story. A classmate that I've grown up with claimed to have seen a flashing orange ball of light on the school lawn. He was the class clown, so no one took him seriously. He started to get really upset and irritated because no one believed him. To be nice, I told him I believed him and asked him to show me where it was. Well, there it was, just a purely random, orange gas-like orb just hovering over the school's front yard. All I could say was, holy crap, he's right. I was your good kid that always did my homework, got good grades, and helped the teachers, so she immediately comes over and asks what's wrong. She sees it and calls 911. Within 20 minutes, the freaking SWAT team is outside, and they search the premises for a good hour or so. The school was closed for the rest of the week, but we were all super happy about that part. Next story. Our vice principal and Japanese language teacher were having an affair. Neither of their spouses had a clue. However, a good chunk of students graduating that year has suspicions as one student saw them together in another city on a random Saturday. Word spread quickly. The doctor of the VP found out, came to the school, and trashed his entire office. 1 year later, the VP is caught with a pack of beer under his desk and resigns. Fast forward 1 year, VP is seen gambling his retirement money away at the casino, walking around with a duffel bag full of cash. Next story. That I know of from my times there as a student. Catholic private school. A senior high school student craps in a bag and throws it out the window. A window on the second or third floor looking outside the building anyway. It lands on a passerby who was on his way to a job interview. I think the poor guy sued the school. Maybe they reached a settlement without it going public or making the news. Next story. Too many. 1. Grade-changing scandal was discovered just as I was graduating. Money was exchanged. I found out later on it was one of my friends and another kid. School pressed charges. My friend ended up on probation and dropped out of Drexel for community college. Nothing wrong with community college, I did it myself. Friend later told me a girl was mad her grade wasn't changed entirely to her liking and pulled the whistle, therefore screwing herself as well. Just a note though, don't make your gradebook password school name 12345. 2. Popular history teacher was caught abusing several female students. He was fired. 3. Another popular history teacher told the truth a few years back that the school didn't have an updated active school shooter plan. Kid got scared, told her mom, and the teacher was suspended. Student body protested. 4. Westboro Baptist protested the school. Kids protested back, including my brother, who proudly held up signs saying, "Drew Barrymore is tolerable in small doses," and "there are 3 primary colors." Next story. Prof got caught with CP on his desktop computer in his office. Further investigations revealed that he was taking students on trips to Canada for one-on-one time. I heard all this when my friend walked into the tutor lab I was running, and all I could think was, holy crap, that guy waved at me at the hockey game last night. His kid and pregnant wife are there. Holy crap. Next story. The biggest scandal that's happened would be one that happened last semester. My old 9th grade geography teacher was arrested for possession and distributing CP after the police found the IP address of the photos to be from our district, specifically from my school itself. Why he was distributing it from school, no idea, and it was like the stupidest thing to do. It was actually covered on the news and everything, which is how I found out. Even like nationwide news. Even before we found out, me and some friends of mine that had him for a teacher at the time always found him to be weird as well. He had witchcraft books. No joke. He actually showed them to us. The way he talked to the female students, he blamed a student to the janitor for spilling a drink, actually calling on our classroom phone to the office while it was smoking to tell them that it was on fire. Again, no joke whatsoever. And just plenty of other weird stuff that I eventually made a list throughout the semester. Even at the end of that semester, when teachers do that thing where they ask students about how they thought of them and whatnot, I dead straight told him how weird he was kind of being, and he just laughed it off like it was no big deal. I thought, okay, weird, but just moved on from it. As soon as I saw him on the news, I also remembered 2 more things. First, he was the girls' basketball coach. I think it was the 9th grade coach. Second, from memory, and from him actually showing us where he lived on Google Maps, he lived right in front of a community center. From what I read, he was awaiting trial, but no more info after that. My geo teacher was also one of the more high-paying teachers, as he had a long career teaching at my school. Mr. A, what the F, dude? Another scandal that happened that wasn't as big happened shortly after when a random stranger snuck into my school and punched a math teacher square in the face. I honestly have no idea why.